Picture this. You just had an argument with a stranger on the subway. Both of you feel hot-headed and begin raising your voices. Luckily, your station stop is next and you get off. For the rest of the day, you keep coming back to the situation and venting to all of your coworkers about how insensitive that stranger was. You share your perspective on the event and you make sure to emphasize how that individual was in the wrong. You get home and you share the story with your loved ones, repeating and rephrasing the narrative with the same fuel as before. Now you're going to bed and you've just realized you've spent an entire day's worth of energy on this one situation which had full control over your emotions and thoughts. Humans have a natural tendency to become reactive when situations or people trigger us. Emotions exist to help us communicate with others, take action, and survive from danger and to make decisions. But the complexity of emotions can feel so overwhelming and has a major impact on all aspects of our lives. The crushing sadness or maddening anger that engulfs our entire being can be uncontrollable, to say the least. The problem with not managing our reactive state is that it can easily consume our thoughts and mindset, making us say or do things that may not only be out of character, but the damages we can inflict on both the situation and ourselves do more harm than good. This is where emotional regulation comes into play. Emotional regulation refers to a person's ability to effectively manage and respond to an emotional experience by implementing strategies that help to reduce anger, fear, or sadness. Effective regulation of our emotions typically increases as we get older. Think of a toddler versus an adult who is expected to know how to regulate their emotions in a way that is socially acceptable. But what makes controlling our emotions still so difficult, even as an adult? The human who is being triggered can almost be actuated to a tantrum. Sometimes as adults, we don't have the language or capacity to feel, and it comes out as rage or anger. Some reasons for this difficulty include a lack of emotional regulation skills, negative beliefs about emotions, or encountering very difficult situations that cause a sense of emotional flooding, creating a greater lack of emotional control. Emotional flooding refers to a sudden overwhelm of feelings and reactive emotions, which often clouds our thoughts with negative reactive responses. In order to reduce the chance of emotional flooding, it's important to ensure that your physical needs are met and to know your own symptoms when you feel an overwhelm of emotions start to take place. If you can recognize when your emotional responses and cues are acting up, such as physical symptoms of increased heart rate, sweating, or an unclear conscience, you can learn to redirect and shift your emotional state into a calmer and more rational temperament before full emotional flooding takes place. Often with an influx of negative emotions, your sympathetic nervous system becomes activated, which is also known as the fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system sets in motion when we are under stress and perceive a potential danger. A large reason why our emotional responses to stressors suddenly become so overwhelming is because our sympathetic nervous system has shorter neuron pathways, making our response times to stressors much faster. Unfortunately, this fast response time doesn't allow us to stop and reflect on our feelings or the situation around us, which causes us to become reactive and often making us feel like we are losing control of our emotions. One way to anchor and gain more control over our emotions during stressful encounters is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system aims to bring the body to a state of calm by reducing our heartbeat and relaxing the muscles. Unlike the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system has longer neuron pathways, which creates a slower response time. This slower response time gives our bodies and minds time to settle into a more gentle state of mind, allowing us to reflect on the situations at hand with a more rational viewpoint, rather than only reacting with our immediate emotions. When we can understand the biology of our emotions and its impact in our responses to our world, it allows us to gain more control over our temperaments, permitting us to make the switch to positive emotional reactions. There are two popular categories of emotional regulation strategies: reappraisal strategies and suppression strategies. Reappraisal strategies aim to get to the root of the problem by reframing how the mind works. It's a positive type of emotional regulation as it transforms the state of negative emotions into a more healthy emotional reaction by learning to make sense of the meaning of the negative stimuli or situation at hand. In contrast, suppression strategies can be thought of as masking our emotions from how we are truly feeling versus what we decide to portray to the world. It becomes an inauthentic way to regulate our emotions as it doesn't do much to actually address the situation or reframe how we are viewing the negative stressors. When suppression strategies are being used, we are masking or hiding our inner feelings. Oftentimes, a lack of emotional regulation skills goes hand in hand with ruminating. Ruminating is the culprit for tainting our state of minds for long periods of time, sometimes lasting weeks, months, or even years. When an individual ruminates over negative situations, they rethink over and over and over about that specific situation. Ruminating intensifies the incident, creating feelings of sadness and depression. It impairs your ability to effectively process your emotions in a healthier manner. Ruminating also becomes addicting, and we may start to ruminate over something that happened years ago without even realizing we are doing it. With an understanding of why our minds and bodies react in specific states during periods of stress and emotional triggering situations, how do we take control of our emotions so that our emotions don't take control of us? How do we avoid ruminating so that we can live a healthier and more peaceful existence? In order to effectively develop emotional regulation skills, we should aim to create strategies that work to support our parasympathetic nervous system and support reappraisal emotional regulation strategies. To engage our parasympathetic nervous system under stressful situations, we need to be brought back to a state of calm. This can be done through mindfulness techniques, deep breathing, or visualization. When our emotions are being triggered, distract yourself with a visualization technique of imagining a calmer place or going for a walk in nature if possible. Also, gently touching your lips provides an immediate relief response, as it activates the parasympathetic nervous system because of the parasympathetic fibers throughout. In terms of reappraisal emotional regulation strategies, recognizing and being honest with yourself when you start to feel emotional turmoil allows these feelings to pass through, making way for more constructive rational beliefs to lower our adrenaline and diffuse our fight or flight responses. We can also reframe the meaning of the stressful stimuli to alter its emotional impact by changing the narrative of the circumstance. For example, instead of getting angry at a stranger for being rude to you, reframe your mindset to evoke a different perspective in the belief that perhaps this individual is dealing with a lot of difficult situations in their personal life, causing them to react in certain negative ways. This shift in perspectives diffuses the situation from a potentially hot-headed argument to a calmer state of being, which further helps to detach ourselves from these types of situations, allowing us to take them less personally. Continual practice over our conscious beliefs and learning to control our physical reactions, like most things, is a skill that will develop and become easier to manage the more we engage these strategies. Ruminating, on the other hand, has a cyclical nature which needs to be broken before it develops into a ruminating session. One way to break the cycle is to distract yourself by doing something else. This can include any activity that would bring you back to the present moment, such as calling a friend, watching a movie or show, reading, or even doing chores around the house. When you are ruminating, instead of repeating the same negative event over and over with no change to the story, break down the events and talk your way through a more rational approach to the situation. Give yourself grace and remind yourself that the situation isn't as bad as you are making it seem. Try to understand the perspectives from all parties involved and give yourself permission to let it go. If we feel that our emotions are automatic and passive, subjective to our environmental situations, we then allow our emotions to be in control of our existence and our experience of the world. However, if we take conscious efforts in managing our emotional states by being aware of our triggers, our reactions, and focus on the goals of the situations at hand, we can learn to control the trajectory of our emotional responses to better foster our emotional regulation skills. High emotional regulation skills are linked to a higher level of life satisfaction, enriching relationships, and improved overall health and happiness. Feeling like you have control over your emotions is one of the most rewarding accomplishments in our human existence. The biggest challenge to self-control is emotional regulation. Successful people know how to make their emotions their servants rather than masters,